Okay, so I mean, I guess I could just wait till the album drops to talk about this in my review, or I can just talk about it now. I also do not want the review of Act 2 whenever it drops. I don't want it to be too long, so I just want to go ahead and make my commentaries now, and then when the album drops, I talk strictly about the music. So Beyonce has really had my wheels turning since last Sunday. It's been a week now since Super Bowl and her dropping her surprise announcement through the Verizon commercial that she will be dropping an album soon. Now, I've already made a video about this, but it doesn't suffice. There's other things that I'm only just now thinking about, but you know, my video went up on Wednesday, so why not make a second video about this? Let's start actually with the most recent thing I heard, that allegedly some country music radio stations were refusing to play Beyonce's music, and I will drop the link to the video that I watched about this down below. So the reference video is going to be down below if you want to check that out. So allegedly some fans were calling radio stations and requesting them to play Texas Hold'em, and they kept saying like they don't play Beyonce's music because she's not a country artist, which they have a point there, but she has a whole country album, and these two songs are clearly country or country leaning or indie or folk. So what's the problem? So after a lot of back and forth and the Beyhive applying pressure, those stations finally succumbed to the Beyhive and said they'll have her in rotation, specifically Texas Hold'em, and that's the latest I heard. And I watched this video like what, yesterday or 2 days ago.
Apparently Beyonce's fans were trying to request, you know, like Texas Hold'em, 16 carriages on their local country music stations, okay? And apparently the country music stations had an issue with this, more or less, and were saying, hey, we're not playing Beyonce here because technically she's not a country music artist. So take a look at what they had to say regarding this. So this particular station says, hi, we do not play Beyonce on KYKC as we are a country music station. Thank you.
It doesn't really surprise me. It's sad, but it doesn't surprise me that an icon of that caliber still just pushed back from stations playing her music. That speaks to the fact that she's still a black woman in America. So it doesn't matter how iconic you are. Haters gonna hate. So this reminds me of when Lil Nas X had his song in 2019 and they wouldn't play it, and then Billy Ray Cyrus had to hop on the track for them to play it. I certainly hope that Beyonce has a few collaborations on this album with heavy hitters in the country music space. So someone like Reba McEntire comes to mind, or like a Dolly Parton. It doesn't have to be those two. They just came to mind because they're well respected in the country music genre. So hopefully she has 1 or 2 collabs on there, which then brings me to the fact that people are speculating that Taylor Swift is going to be on the album, which there's no surprises there. If you think about it, back to the summer, both of them ruled the summer with your tours. Both of them had movies about your tours that were in the movie theaters, not just documentaries or like HBO or one of these streaming services. They were in the movie theaters, and both of them attended each other's premieres. So this could have been part of the larger plan all along, which blows my mind. So basically, Beyonce was already hinting or promoting Act 2 in Act 1. Back to the outfit that she was wearing for the Grammys, I'm so oblivious that I didn't think nothing of it, because she's had that cowboy hat on from the very beginning when she was promoting Renaissance Act 1, that little trailer. So it didn't really strike me as like, oh, she's promoting new music with that cowboy hat on. And then if you look at even the pictures from Act 1 where she's on the horse, the silver horse, she has a cowboy hat on. So I'm like, oh, that's just a continuation of Act 1. I didn't know that she was actually promoting the new stuff with that outfit, but now we know. Wild. Her strategy is wild. Which also leads me to think that since they both attended each other's premieres, they're friendly. You would have to be friendly with somebody in order to collab with them. But I don't really think you're friends. I don't think there's friends in this music industry because there's a lot of competition, which also brings me to a video I watched about people saying that, not even just one video, apparently a lot of people are saying that Beyonce stole Usher's moments. And this is not to defend Beyonce or Usher. You're both icons and legends, and I'm sure they have lawyers to defend them, lawyers who are paid to defend them, but I don't think she stole Usher's moment because people are still talking about Usher's performance. You're talking about Usher's performance and Beyonce's price drop of music. So they're not just strictly talking about Beyonce. And this is a business. Music, NFL, that's all a business, you guys. So why wouldn't she take the opportunity to promote her stuff on one of the biggest nights of the year when everybody is tuned in? It would be foolish.
My father taught me so much about being a businesswoman, and I'm understanding him a lot now. And I think I've realized that business and being polite, it doesn't match. I mean, you can be fair, but me being polite was not me being fair to myself. And now I'm learning how political things are. And a lot of the crazy things he did was necessary.
It's dog eat dog world out there. You eat or you be eaten. And does it make it right? But that's capitalism for you. Also, people were saying that it's possible that Lady Gaga could be also collaborating with Beyonce, which again, it's not surprising. We're talking about how that telephone video from, was it 2011 or 2012? It says to be continued at the very end, and we have not gotten a video from that. So it's possible that this is going to be part 2, or she's going to appear in Beyonce's album for part 2, which makes a lot of sense. I remember right after they aired Beyonce's commercial, the camera panned over to her. So as I was saying, the camera panned over to Lady Gaga, and there were speculations that because she wore a jersey with number 16 on it, it was a clue that it was like for 16 carriages. So I don't know, it's very possible. And you can see when the camera panned over to Gaga, she looked away like she did not want the camera on her. Now let's go ahead and talk about 16 Carriages and Texas Hold'em again. So that means when the album comes out, I will not be talking about those 2 tracks because at this point I'm going to be talking about them till death. So I have talked about it in that previous video, but it was just a very brief overview. So let's go a little bit more details. We start with 16 Carriages. So straight away with 16 Carriages, before I even listened to the song, I knew the tone of the song was going to be somber, because even if you look at the cover of the single, it's in black and white. She has a hat on and she's looking at the camera. That to me is telling me she's going to be bearing her soul. I did say in my recent video that the lyrics represent most of America, most of what Americans are going through. People like work so hard every day. Sometimes you're underpaid and you're overwhelmed, and they still have a family to go home to, and they still keep going. But I also feel like the song is about her. I remember watching a video by this YouTube channel called Scandalous Media. She was breaking down the Vampire lyrics by Olivia Rodrigo, and she says that sometimes with artists, they will combine 2 different experiences in a song. And what she was saying was like with Vampire, I think it was Vampire or The Grudge, we as the listener couldn't quite figure out if she's talking about a romantic relationship like an ex-boyfriend, or if she's talking about business gone wrong, i.e. Taylor Swift suing her or something, or forcing her to pay some money for sampling her music.
But the song itself is produced and portrayed as a breakup song about Olivia's relationship with Adam Faze. However, some of the lyrics don't exactly make sense if it's about her breakup with Adam, as I'll explain in a moment, but nonetheless, it's interesting to think that it could be inspired by both a heartbreak in terms of a relationship, as well as a heartbreak in which meeting your hero, Taylor, and having the hero turn out to be not what you thought she would be, as I explained in my other video. How Olivia seemed to want that mentorship type of relationship with Taylor, and instead got hit by a business suit saying to put her on the credits.
So similarly in 16 Carriages, I feel like Beyonce is doing the same thing. She's taking 2 experiences or narratives and putting it together into one. So she's talking about the regular everyday person who has to go out and hustle. Even though you're overwhelmed and underpaid, you're still working hard to build a legacy for your family. And she's talking about herself too. It's very obvious. Talking about always going on the road, going touring, and now she misses her kids. And she talks about seeing her mom praying, or her dad grinding. We know that her dad used to manage her when she was back in Destiny's Child, until she cut off business ties with her dad back in, was it 2012 or 2013, before she released her 4th studio album. And then in the next verse, she talks about her daddy lying. We know that her dad was having an affair, having several affairs on her mother, and they ended up getting divorced. So she's getting definitely personal in this album. Also, there's a play on words in the hook, or what I would call the chorus, where she says, I cook clean, but I just won't fold. I thought that was brilliant, as in like she cooks and cleans, she does all like her motherly and wifely duties, but she's not gonna fold. She's gonna still continue to make her art. And then the other side of it is saying I cook clean, but I just won't fold. Like when you do laundry, you have to fold clothes. By the way, I do not like folding clothes. I do it because I like how nice it looks, how organized it looks, but I despise folding clothes. So I think that's also what she means. I cook and clean, but I'm not gonna fold clothes. I get maybe somebody else to do it for me. And also another thing to note about the song that I picked up on, it low-key sounds like a Gilmore Girls soundtrack. If you watch Gilmore Girls, you know a lot of your songs were very guitar instrumental, and there was always someone singing la 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 in the background in different forms. So it sounds like this particular Gilmore Girls soundtrack. I'll play it for you. Country was the next logical move for Beyonce. It makes sense because even if you look back at, if you've been following her documentaries, if you look at Life is But a Dream, or even 4, which is a documentary she made when she was in the process of making her 4th studio album, she talks about not wanting to keep making the same kinds of songs for the next 10 years, or write the same kinds of songs, or sing about the same thing, I should say, for the next 10 years. If I can find the video, I will insert it.
At some point in my career, I felt like I was doing way too much. I felt like I had been so commercially successful. It wasn't enough. It's something really stressful about having to keep up with that. It's something really crippling. You can't express yourself. I don't want to have to sing about the same thing for 10 more years. You can't grow. I want to be able to sing about how much I hate myself that day, if that's how I feel. And I felt like it was time for me to set up my future. So I set a goal. And my goal was independence.
And so that right there is telling you that she's a visionary, and she knows that one thing is only going to work but for so long, and then you have to evolve. And I've talked about this again in the other video about female artists needing to evolve all the time. Just in general, everyone has to evolve in this industry, but women in particular have the microscope on them. They have to evolve, like it or not, otherwise you're gonna get left behind. And so if you can see the evolution of her albums, her first 3 albums were more or less pop, R&B, very traditional formula. And then by the time you get to the 4th album, yeah, it was still relatively similar to the first 3, but you can see there was a little bit of an edge to it. Even the album cover was slightly different. And then you get to the 5th album, and that changed the whole game. No promotion, had videos for every single track, and dropped everything on the same day without telling anybody. That was revolutionary for its time because people didn't do things like that. So after the self-titled album, she had Lemonade, right? Am I missing something? Yeah, she had Lemonade, but yeah, she definitely was evolving. And up until this point, you hadn't seen her with braids on an album cover, and we saw that in Lemonade. And so that was definitely telling her fans, ooh, this album is about to be blackety black. So another reason I'm not surprised that Beyonce is going country is if you look as far back, and I've mentioned this in my other video, but I want to expand upon that. You look back as far as her third album, I Am Sasha Fierce, she had 2 tracks on there that were country leaning. One of them being her single, If I Were a Boy. And then she had Daddy Lessons back in 2016 with the whole debacle with the Dixie Chicks. So I'm not surprised. I think she was just like testing the waters to see how well a country song and then maybe an album will do. If she would have tried releasing a country album back in the early 2000s, that probably would have killed her career, because she was already branded as an R&B pop artist. But now that she's pretty established in her career, she can pretty much do what she wants. And I think back to also Taylor Swift doing the same thing, very country, and then with her album Red, she released 2 pop tracks to test the waters to see how well they would do. I Knew You Were Trouble and We Are Never Getting Back Together. And I would even argue that Mean was also kind of indie pop-ish. And so those tracks all did well. One of them even becoming used for a meme. Right after that, then she released a full pop album, which was the 1989, the original version. Since we're talking about crossover, also think about Nelly and Tim McGraw. If you're as old as I am, you remember how, for me anyway, how kind of, I don't want to say weird, but it was off-putting to hear Nelly rap over a country tune and vice versa. But I see what both of them were trying to do. Act 3 is probably going to be rock and roll, as people are predicting. Those are genres she hasn't touched, and I'm glad that she's really going there and just expanding her taste, and everyone who listens to her, their taste in music as well. Also, I just figured out the answer to my question from my last Beyonce video. And when I say the last one, not the one that aired a week or 2 ago, but the one that aired a year and a half ago when Act 1 was released, and I did a review on that. I'm going to insert it here. Please do check it out if you haven't. All this will make sense. So at the very end of the video, I posed the question. I said, okay, what does the silver horse stand for? Because I said, I know Beyonce is from Texas, and I know she likes horses, but like, why the silver horse? And also the hat. Well, I figured that out. So whole time she was promoting Act 2 as well. One last thing to note as I sit in my car as it's pouring rain outside. I feel like this country album is a full circle moment for Beyonce, because she has been called country pretty much her entire career because of her accent. And then she actually does a country album and some people are mad. Like, pick a side. And also, I'm actually now at this moment convinced that Taylor Swift is going to be on that album. Because I think about the Easter eggs that Beyonce has been dropping from Renaissance specifically. And I think about how Taylor Swift is the queen of Easter eggs. She's not the first artist to do Easter eggs, but she's certainly the biggest star, at least in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years, to be doing Easter eggs. So I'm almost certain there's a collab happening here. But yeah, we'll find out, and I hope I'm right. One last thing, I promise this is going to be the last thing, because I want to make this video balanced just so it doesn't look like I'm a Beyonce worshiper. I love Beyonce, I'm a fan. I've been loving her music since Destiny's Child. She's an icon, she's a legend, but I've also watched the videos with Tiffany Red and the pay inequities about songwriting. And I mean, we already have been seeing this conversation going around that you don't get to be a billionaire without ripping people off. We've seen this, and I've also been seeing the videos about Beyonce plagiarizing from people.
Guys got paid really well, guys. So this is Beyonce side by side with a lesser known Italian artist named Lorella Cuccarini. And as you can see, it looks almost identical. Lorella performed this 1 year before Beyonce. And if it wasn't for Lorella's fans recognizing that Beyonce completely copied her, no one would have known. And it was only after Beyonce got called out that she said she was inspired by Lorella.
The thing where Beyonce, you know, she wrote some or whatever. I don't know what the collaboration was, but I wrote this for, you know, the women and so on and so forth. How much is irreplaceable. How much of that is your opinion, Neil?
I wrote all the lyrics. She helped put a lot of the melodies and harmonies together.
Oh, but lyrically, damn, Neil.
Yeah.
I wrote this for all of the women out there.
Apologize for mispronouncing your name, but she's also known as Mitsu, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that as well. But she alleges that Beyonce recorded her singing a song back in 2005 and then digitally manipulated it to be the intro of the Drunken Love song.
The dance-off playing out around the world. Mega pop star Beyonce versus a little-known Belgian choreographer who claims the singer stole her signature moves. Take a look at Beyonce's countdown video. Now watch Anna Teresa de Keersmaker's choreography. De Keersmaker told a Belgian radio station, quote, "This is plagiarism. This is stealing. What's rude about it is that they don't even bother about hiding it."
And to that point, I will say this: nobody or nothing is original anymore. I think we all borrow from each other. Artists borrow from each other as long as you give credit that you borrow from this person. It's one thing to lift choreography or like a text or paragraph from somebody's work and make it look like it's your own and not use citations. And it's another to lift choreography or whatever and give credit where credit is due and then put your own spin on it. And that's all I'll say about that. And I hope you enjoy this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thing that should wrap up this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. It feels like it's all over the place because when I remember something then I want to record it because it's a lot to take in. But like, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys for the actual review of Act 2 in April.